Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge, a sidecast to our made podcast, where instead of looking at a movie 1 minute at a time, we actually bring on an interesting person and we talk to them about their life 1 moment at a time. I'm your host. I'm Alan Sanders.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
Walt, you are going through hay fever season.
Yes, I am.
I was talking to you earlier. I'm like, oh, please do something before you sound like you've got nothing but just cotton stuffed up your nose for the recording.
Yeah, too bad. I took some medicine a little while ago and it hadn't touched it. So I'm on my third major cup of Black Rifle coffee.
Oh, let me tell you, you sound so much better than what you were taking. You were leaving me voice messages and it was like, I'm ready to record tomorrow. I'm like, what are you trying to do? A bad Arnold impression? That's horrible.
Wait, that was a pretty good Arnold impression, I thought.
Well, it ended up being better than expected, only he sounded like he was from West Virginia.
Well, you know,
I'll
you
be
never know,
back,
Arnold.
y'all.
Well, it is that time of year around here. The great thing about fall for me is the cooler weather. I loved waking up this morning and my daughter having to turn the heat on in the house. But yeah, the other end of that is ragweed and oak and all the other stuff that just kills me for about a week.
Now, on the flip side, I said this was my first weekend in I can't remember how long, where my outside chores, I didn't want to come back inside. I just kept staying outside. I ended up doing twice as much as usual just because it felt so good.
Oh, I loved it. I got a great grass cutting in yesterday, and then I was painting the den. So I had all the windows open, doors open, had the breeze going through. It was awesome.
Yeah, perfect time of year. So as we are getting ready for Halloween, because our Halloween episode just came out last week, and you and I are getting ready for our Halloween spooktacular.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really look forward to that. This will be my third time in a row on, and I just love it. I mean, every time getting ready for it, and actually the three of us sitting down in the studio and just having a ball. It is one of the highlights of my holiday season.
Do you know what my favorite phone call was about from our last episode? My favorite listener message from basically talking about the show.
I know what mine is.
It's probably the same one. Because hey, you guys sound like you're just about at a bar drinking beer and talking. We were like, yes.
You're exactly right. And that is
ding,
exactly
win a prize.
What we were going for.
I don't want no prize from this kind of show.
I know. I was like, wait, that's a negative?
Yeah.
I thought that was a positive.
Why is that a problem? You guys sound like you're having way too much fun laughing and yucking up. This is serious.
Yeah, I was like, wait, number one, no, it is not serious. Number two, that's what they pay us for.
Did you catch the title? Halloween Spooktacular.
Yeah, it's BK, Allen, and Walt. What are you really looking for? This is like not the hard news segment.
The collective IQ of all three of us won't fit in a thimble. Okay. So what were you expecting? I mean, to me, I isolated that and said, there you go. Everybody says, what's the show about? I'm like, hold on 1 second. And I hit play. Sounds like you guys are just sitting at a table in a bar drinking beer. Yes.
Yes, correct. Well, and I always hate to make fun of listeners, but in that case, it kind of was justified.
Well, yes, exactly. I'm okay with that. We got plenty of them. We can afford to toss one or two aside.
I mean, that was almost our billing for that show. I mean, if you had heard the ads or anything.
How did you miss exactly? How'd you miss the promo? I mean, we could not be goofier if we tried. We couldn't be goofier if you didn't draw us like a dog and wearing overalls.
Yeah, no doubt. And this was like our 9th time we've done this show, or that y'all have done this show.
It was 6th last year. This is going to be our 7th.
Okay, this is our 7th. So, and this will be my 3rd. And I'm just kind of dumbfounded. This is what we do. So
imagine this opening monologue that we do with every one of our shows, and it just being all about Halloween, our favorite movies and music and candies and memories and growing up and short stories and 2-sentence stories and whatever, just having a good time
and taking calls from listeners. And I mean, it's really just fun. It's just 3 hours of fun for us.
So I will tell you, if you are not already following us, and I know at the very end, we'll give you the Wilder Ride Facebook information, but we're going to put the promo poster and everything up if it's not been up already. If depending where you live, you can stream and listen live. But if you miss out on it, and we've done this the last couple of years, Walt, because some folks, just because it's late, because depending what day of the week it's on, they may not be able to stay up till midnight. I always then edit out all the commercials and I make it available as a 2-hour plus podcast. And I think a lot of people love going back and listening.
Yeah, it really is. It's great. So yeah, like you said, we will put it up on our feed, but also it's on WBHF, which is the radio station in Cartersville. And you can find that on TuneIn and listen to it anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And it's really great.
We're actually on a couple of apps. You can use the TuneIn Radio app. You can use the Radio Garden app, which is really, really cool. Or if you've got an Alexa, you got a Google Home smart speaker, you just say, hey, play WBHF radio, and it'll stream.
Yeah, that's great. And I know I have gotten feedback from people literally all over the world who've listened to that show and loved it.
Well, before we bring in our guest, because speaking about being all over the world, we're going to take a hop, skip, and a jump over the pond to the UK. Anything else you got that you want to open with this week?
No, I'm just looking forward to our guest. So ready to hear what he has to say.
Well, let me set the stage. You know, we have guests all over the, basically all over, from, you know, writers and musicians to explorers to politicians to retired weather people, FBI. But every now and then it's just fun to go dive into someone who's a fan or somebody who is a fan of podcasts. And in this case, we stumbled across a guy who I think may be one of the greatest champions of independent podcasts, does more marketing for these shows than some of the shows themselves do. And I thought, we got to get this guy on. He's so cool. He's always so supportive. He's so positive in a world that's full of clickbait negatives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome to our stage from across the pond, Ian Willett. Ian, welcome.
Yay.
Hello.
What can you tell? I'm in a good mood. I always have fun when I'm on. This is great.
I have to say, I don't know what the other guy was worried about, but the Spooktacular was great last year.
So you listened to it?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
yes.
Awesome.
Well, on the podcast anyway, on the podcast feed.
Yeah, it was a little late for you. Well, maybe early. Because we've been like 3 a.m.
Yeah, a bit of both.
So, well, first thing I wanted to do is say welcome and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. I know you're a very, very, very busy guy. And in fact, you're so busy, always on the road. That's where you kind of started basically getting addicted to podcasts.
Yes. Every day is a 12-hour day. I'm driving most of the time. Although I'm multi-drop for FedEx, it's an hour journey to my delivery area. It's not, I obviously have many minutes between every stop. So the radio gets very boring. And I wanted to listen to stuff that I wanted to listen to. So I started off with 1 or 2 podcasts, and now it's around 60 a week, I think it is.
Good night.
Well, when you think about it, Walt, I mean, if you and I listen to 4 or 5 hours of, let's say, talk or sports radio, that you could very easily fit in 6 or 7 shows in that same time frame.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I was going to ask you, do you have a particular genre that you like to listen to, or is it kind of all over the map?
It's spread out quite a lot, to be fair. A lot of it is true crime. I listen to some sport ones, entertainment ones, some story ones as well. People making up stories, which are very funny. And a lot of chat shows like yourselves. I like to keep it varied because it's going to get boring if you listen to the same thing over and over again.
Definitely.
So yeah, I get to listen to stuff that interests me, not what interests whoever's talking on the radio.
Well, the true crime genre, of course, is just crazy. I mean, there are so many shows, and those tend to be up towards the top of the ratings all the time. Which ones do you listen to that you find to be the best?
I don't like picking out individual ones, but there's one called Morbidology. That's done by a lady called Emily G. Thompson. She's very good. There's a case file one. He's in Australia. He's very good. There's quite a few UK ones, UK True Crime, Murder Mile, They Walk Among Us. There's so many. There's probably about 15 I listen to on a weekly basis. I have to listen to them on 1.5 speed because I don't have enough hours in the week to get through them all.
I was going to say, you've got a lot of listening to, because some of those I know are well over 2 hours, or at least hit the 2 hour mark every week.
Some of them, yes. That's why I had to increase the speed because I never had enough time. I listened to some gaming ones as well. I played a game on Xbox called Destiny. So that's where I started listening to Destiny podcasts. I've kind of moved away from them now. And it's grown into this beast that I can't control anymore.
Well, you actually, when you mentioned that to me, Ian, about we're listening to it at 1.5 speed, I said, you're not going to recognize what we really sound like then. And then I started doing the same thing to get caught up on some of the shows where they tended to talk a little slower anyway, and they left a lot of pauses. And I started getting annoyed because I'm like, okay, come on. And now I'm listening to everything in 1.5 speed.
It's strange, but it changes the way they sound, and the way sometimes I have to, if I've missed something because it is quite fast, if they happen to speak fast as well. So, but you're right, you put it on normal speed and it sounds like they're walking and talking in molasses, and it's like, oh no. And it's all very strange.
See, I'm always cognizant when I edit our show to try to make sure it's always moving along. And so I wonder, do you with our show, do you sometimes have to reduce the speed because you missed something, or are you still okay 1.5 with even us?
No, yours is always fine. You both speak quite clearly, and it's obviously edited perfectly. So yeah, it's never really a problem. It's just sometimes you get some accents of certain people, and then you have to, some of them, like it's Irish ones I listen to, and Australian ones, like I said, and some of the American ones as well, and some of the accents are very
Walt
broad.
I think some people, they also don't have maybe the cleanest connection, and sometimes if it's a little muddy sounding and then you speed it up, it's even harder to make out the words.
Yes, most of the ones I listen to be fair, are pretty good. There's the odd one that the recording isn't great, but I enjoy the show, so it's something you put up with to listen to good content.
Let's go back, because we always like to try to give the audience a sense of our guests, and we're talking with somebody who has become a podcast addict. You said you started off with the Destiny podcast. How did it grow? Like, how did you even start learning about podcasts? When did the podcast fascination take hold of you?
It's hard to remember, because it was about probably 4 or 5 years ago now. But I got into the game and I wanted to know more about the game. And I just happened to, I had my Apple phone and this new app came up, Apple Podcasts. And I was like, well, what's this? And I happened just to search Destiny and came up with, it was the Destiny Reset podcast. They no longer, sadly, no longer record. But that started with that one. And I was like, oh, well, that's really good. Can I find another one? And can I find another one? Then I stumbled across some other sport ones. Manchester United, my football team, so I stumbled across one for them, and then it's like, true crime, I've never listened to that, I'll try that. And then that went on, and then the list just got longer and longer and longer, and now my days are filled with it. So I have to listen to it in the evenings as well, if I'm at home. If the wife's not here, I'll put it on and have it on loudspeaker while I'm doing whatever I'm doing around the house, just to try and catch up sometimes, because sometimes there is just too much. Or if some podcasts are bi-weekly, so some weeks are busier than others.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's kind of grown into this thing now where I don't want to stop listening to them. Sometimes it's a relief if they stop recording, so I gain myself half an hour.
Thank you for taking a break. Oh, well, now I want to kind of roll it into, when did it become sort of like, I don't know if it's a mission, or if it's just something you feel, hey, I'm getting all this free entertainment, I don't have to subscribe, I've got all these people working so hard, it won't take me but just a second to share what I've been listening to. It's amazing. Not many people do what you do. When did you start becoming sort of the evangelical of podcasts? I didn't know I was at the time. It was literally exactly like what you said. Is
I get free content. These people put a lot of hours and a lot of time into the content they put out. And I'm listening for free. A lot of them have Patreons, but I don't have a lot of spare money to be able to throw into Patreon. So I thought, how else can I give back to these people? And so I just started off with a hashtag Follow Friday tweet that I do every Friday with all the ones I listen to on a regular basis. And obviously, when the shows come out, I tweet to say, listen to your show, great show, thank you very much. And now that's grown into the Follow Friday tweet has grown into people saying, oh, would you mind promoting my podcast, or would you want to listen to it? I don't have the time to listen to a new podcast, but I was like, I'm happy to promote you if you like. And now I think every Friday I send out somewhere in the region of nearly 40 tweets with about 550 odd podcasts last time I looked. And problem is Friday, my phone is going off all day long. It doesn't stop with people saying, thanks for the mention, thanks for the promotion. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. Yeah, have a nice weekend. Yeah. But it's literally all day. It doesn't shut up.
Oh, he's such a popular guy, though. I mean, there's got to be a good feeling, though, when you realize how many people are at least reaching back out to you to thank you, because I hate to say it, very few listeners take the time to share.
Yeah, I did. To be fair, I did notice that people don't. And I don't understand why, but I guess people just take it for granted what they get. And I thought, well, I don't want to be one of them. I'd like to be one who does say thank you. It doesn't take long to say thank you, to be fair. And some people do appreciate it. And every week it's like, thank you for listening and thank you for saying what a great show it was. And just for generally just being there every single week. And it is a nice, lovely feeling when people people do say some really nice things to say thank you. I appreciate them, and thankfully most of them appreciate me.
So I've also noticed, because I do tend to follow, what you've tweeted and try out some of the shows you recommend. It's gotten you invites, not just this show, but you've had invites previously. Did you ever expect that to happen to you?
No, not in the slightest. This is only the second podcast I've actually managed to do. I think you listened to the other one. That started off as a Destiny podcast as well. Now it's just a general gaming and chit chat and kind of a bit of banter. But they invited me on, and they had to adjust their times as well just to get me on. I think they had to get up at 7:00 in the morning to be able to fit me in. But yeah, I've had a few people invite me on. It's been great. Sadly, with the times, it's really hard to fit it in sometimes. There's one show is about 3 hours long, and that was really hard to try and fit me in. It never actually worked out in the end, which is a shame. The hours are just the distance over the pond is just too far. But yeah, it's quite humbling to be invited on to people's shows. These people work like yourselves. You work hard, and you have me on. You've had astronauts on and mountain climbers and people's dads who crash helicopters. And,
that's nothing unique for my family. That's kind of par for the course for us. If somebody's going to crash one, it's going to be a Murray.
It's going to be a Murray.
So then you have a podcast listening delivery driver, and compared to all these other extraordinary people like astronauts, and professional footballers, seems a bit down.
Ian, when it comes to people, everyone's got a cool story. It's just, You got to figure out what the questions are to ask. And I knew early on, and you and I tried to get you on probably 6-7 months ago, and it just kind of fell through and kind of pushed through because of scheduling. And I was like, well, I won't forget. And then I got busy, you got busy, and I felt bad. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I forgot to circle back around to you. We both, Walt and I, said, we got to get this guy on because we have never seen somebody champion podcasts so not only regularly, but with true sincerity. And you can tell you're not just doing it to get likes. You're not doing it to grow your own social media feed. You're not doing it for you. You really are trying to help show the world, hey, check out these shows. I like them. Maybe you'd like them too.
There's been a few people who have messaged me to say, I saw your tweet and I've listened to the show and I really enjoy it. And that's all I ever wanted, was to champion these people who do put so many hours of their lives, especially the people who do true crime. They put so many hours a day. I mean, one of them, a guy called Mike on Murder Mile, he often says, along with the research, he has to go to the archive centers and we'll look at the archives and then record the show. And it literally takes him 3 days to do the recording and then another 3 days to edit the show, because he puts sounds and all this sort of stuff. So it makes you feel like you're actually, he says it makes you feel like you're actually there. And if somebody's prepared to put that amount of time in to give us free content, for me just to send a couple of tweets during the week and for me to spend I think it takes me about 10 minutes to copy and paste all the tweets on a Friday before I leave for work. It's a very small price for me to do, to give back to the amount of time people put in.
Well, I got to tell you, what a lot of people don't realize is the amount of effort that goes into a well-produced cast. I usually tell people the rule of thumb is if the show itself ended up being about an hour or 2 hours, like for me, if I record a 2-hour show, I've easily got 6 hours of editing and then probably another hour of creating the title card, creating the show notes, publishing it, and then going back and doing the social media. So you're looking at nearly a full 8-hour day to put out one show.
Yeah, I genuinely, when I first started listening, I had no idea how much goes into doing a show. I looked at doing a show myself. It never worked out. It was the people of the times never really worked out. I don't have a PC, so I had no way of editing. So I'd have to have somebody who was prepared to do all that side for me.
Walt. Walt found somebody.
But it's just the amount of work that goes into it is incredible. And these people deserve a pat on the back for what they do and the amount of work that goes into it. It was just my little way of giving back for entertaining me while I'm driving.
Well, for me, podcasts are such an interesting thing right now too, because it is something that you can put as much or little into as you want to put your content out there. And I know there are people who do very little editing, which is fine because it's kind of the wild west of entertainment right now. And it's not regulated. It's not, there's no oversight on podcasts. It really is how much, time do you want to put in? What is your content? What is your niche? And being able to find an audience for it. And you don't even really have to find an audience because it's not hugely expensive, but to begin to build an audience, you do have to put a quality product out there. People aren't just going to listen to, some weirdo in his basement pontificating about, wait a minute, that might be something.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Hold on, there's my next podcast. Walt pontificates.
No, but you're right, though. You can have what we used to say in the video production business, 2 kids and a camcorder. Well, they can do a commercial. They can shoot a video for your company.
Sure.
Or you could hire somebody who knows the value of setting up the shot, the composition, the lighting, the sound. You're going to get a better product with somebody who's putting a little bit of effort into it. And yet we're still all doing this for free because we love what we're talking about.
Absolutely. There has been many a podcast that I've started listening to and stopped because I didn't like it. I didn't like the way they behaved or the way they spoke, or like you said, the production value. Sometimes you can't hear a word they're saying. It's still noisy and crackly. And what was the point we were on? I forgot.
Well, we were just talking about how some of our competition is a little less than professional. But some of the stuff, though, I'm listening to one right now where the lady after the first episode said, I have gotten all these people who are commenting about how terrible my voice is. And I told you up front, I'm a investigative reporter, not a podcaster and not a radio person. And the content is so good that I keep listening. And like I've said before, true crime, I sometimes it gets to be a little much because of what I do for a living. It feels too much like work, but this is a case I'm interested in. And she is really doing a great job of getting the content out there. So it's worth it to me to not have somebody who is a professionally trained network news type person talk about this case. So it really is pretty awesome that you can just say, hey, this is what I'm interested in, and go find a podcast on it. And sometimes find an excellent podcast on it.
Well, this goes back to my argument you and I have had, Walt, about movies and movie scripts. They keep thinking throw more CGI, more sound, more explosions, and that's going to make for a good movie. It can make a good movie great, but if you've got a shit movie, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Putting sprinkles on a turd, it's still a turd.
Right. Tell me a good story. And I think that's the thing for podcasts too, is if you're not telling me a good story or you're not covering something I'm interested in, I've got 50 million other options out there. And so I can go over to Ian's Twitter feed and go, okay, what's another good one to listen to?
Exactly. Ian, let's talk about you just for a minute. Whereabouts in the UK are you? If someone's listening from the UK, where do you hail from? I
am the east side. They call it East Anglia. It's Norwich is the closest town stroke city to me. If you look at the UK, and if you look at the UK on the right hand side, there's like a little bulbous wart on the side. That's where I am.
The bulbous backside, huh? Okay, gotcha.
That's it. If you look at it, as it slopes down, it kind of curls around a little bit. And that's where I am. It's the east side of the UK.
It's like my friends in Florida who describe Florida as America's Wang. You're the bulbous wart of the UK.
That's it. That's where we are. Although it says on the town sign as you drive in, a fine city, and to be fair, it is quite a nice city. I wasn't born this side. I was born more over to the west side, right close to the Welsh border. But when my parents split up, my mum moved me this side of the country. Although unlike your country, it only takes 4 hours to get from one side to the other, whereas yours, it takes days on end.
It takes 4 hours for me to get from north to south Georgia.
No kidding.
State. Well, Norwich, how close? Well, because it's obviously in the eastern side. Are you close to the ocean? Are you close to the coast?
Yes, I don't know what ocean it is. To be fair, my geography is terrible, but yes, it's about half an hour drive to the seaside, as we call it.
So you're okay. I think I know where you are in my head. You're like if you go southeast, that goes toward Cambridge, right? And then if you go further southeast it goes toward London.
That's it. Yep. If you go south, it's London. If you southeast, you got Cambridge, and I'm trying to think what other towns you might know around here, but we have.
I'm trying to learn more of them.
I mean, our seaside towns are Cromer, Great Yarmouth, which isn't great, Lowestoft, and you go a bit further down, and you've got. I'm not sure where they are, to be fair, but it's a nice part of the world. It's very flat, though. They call it the Fens because it's flat, very flat.
Really? Okay. So I've only been to the UK once in my life. I was with IBM, one of my earlier jobs, and one of the things, and I think I've told this story on the radio before, so Walt may have heard it. I don't know if I've said it on one of the podcasts, but one of the things I will never forget is they got a driver for me because you guys drive on the left, we drive on the right, and IBM felt like, well, you're only going to be there a week. We don't want to take a chance. It's just easier for us to hire a driver to get you to and from the
You're
airport.
not real smart. You won't figure this out.
Well, yeah. Well, they looked at me and they go, we're going to get you a driver. Yeah. And we're driving along, and it was a middle-aged woman who had a car, and it was just an agency. And I was just like, so what's up here? And what's this? What's this? She goes, I've just realized I don't know anything about where I live. And I realized, and she said, you know what? I've got to learn that I have a history in my own town that I take for granted. And I thought the same thing with us here. If I don't become my own, if I don't become a tourist in my own hometown, I don't know what I have in my own backyard. And so it was just a really fun exchange because she suddenly goes, you know what? Do you got a minute? And I was like, yeah. She goes, okay. And she took me down some side road, and we ended up going to some village, some hamlet that had maybe 100 homes that dated back to Shakespeare's day. And it was all thatched roofs still. It was like 18-inch thick, like plaster mortise for the walls. And yet you saw cable being, tacked to the outside. And I kept thinking to myself, these houses were around when Shakespeare's writing plays, and now people are streaming internet television into these same houses. And to me, that was just incredible.
It's crazy,
just the idea of the history.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I mean, you could ask me the history of where I live, and I would not be able to come up with a great deal, to be fair. We have a castle in the middle of the town. Some of the original walls from the Roman times are still there. There's a Victorian cobbled street that's still there. It's original when that was but most of it has been changed. Most of it's been built up on. And so, I mean, I've seen pictures of what Norwich used to be like even 50 years ago, and it's a completely different place. It's like everything in the UK and probably around the world. Times move on and people build on top of what used to be there. They've protected some of the old walls that used to be there, some of the city limit walls. Norwich Castle is still as it was, but it's now a museum. Myself and my wife, we have a thing, they call it English heritage. We made a point of it. It's in the UK, they try and protect as many old houses, Victorian houses, castles, and all the rest of it as much as they can. We have a membership there, so we go and visit as many castles as we can around the UK. And if we go away, like we went down to Kent on holiday, and we went to Dover Castle, which is one of the World War II. It was obviously a castle before then, but they reused it for the World War II. They have underground hospitals and all this sort of stuff that they used to use, and only recently have stopped using because it's underground. It's a bit warm. It's a bit musty down there. But it's very interesting. There's a toilet that you used to go to the toilet. They used to sit on this toilet, and as you looked out the toilet, you could see France through this toilet window.
Oh, really?
Which is all it's very, very, very interesting. So yeah, we have some lovely architecture around here, and I literally don't know much about any of it. Terrible.
Since we're having this sort of free-form discussion, do you find yourself, now that you've got children and you are getting, I hate to say older because we are all getting older, do you find now value in understanding where you live and what's cool about where you live and the history about where you grew up?
Yes, myself and my wife, we try and teach our kids about history and what came before them. We've told them all about the wars and what happens and why we have to be thankful for the sacrifice they made. There was the anniversary of 9/11 a few weeks ago, and my eldest daughter sat down and she watched a 3-hour program that we had on over here all about it, and we explained all about that to her. So we try and teach them where they came from and the values that they have to. It kind of goes in one ear and out the other, as it does with youngsters nowadays. But we try and teach them about what's around them, so they know. We make them drag them out for walks and around the forests and stuff around here. So
go outside and play in the fresh air.
Yes, yeah. You don't have to look at a forest on the computer. There is real ones.
Isn't it crazy? Here's this is, and I love these kind of conversations because we all probably were all around the same age. We grew up where we couldn't wait to get outside. We couldn't wait to ride our bikes. We couldn't wait to build tree forts or underground forts or have fake wars and battles. And the kids today, I don't want to sound like that. Kids today, I think technology is awesome and great, but the number of kids that would rather sit inside all day instead of get outside, it's crazy.
It really is crazy. And I grew up we used to have my stepdad used to be a gamekeeper. They call it a gamekeeper on the Sandringham estate, which is the Queen's estate. And generally, a gamekeeper is somebody who looks after the land for them. They keep the pheasants, they look after them, and because we have like the hunting around here, they shoot pheasants and stuff. So they kind of breed them, and then once every year they'll go and thin them out a little bit so they don't take over. So I was brought up on the Sandringham estate. I was blessed and christened in the Queen's Church by the Queen's Bishop.
Wow.
Which is all very, very, very strange. I revisited that. When you're young, it's this massive big building that you go. And when I revisited it about 3 or 4 months ago, and it's tiny.
Yeah, time kind of has a way of changing our perspective, doesn't it?
It is. When you're small, and they'd make you walk in a straight line, and you have to go meet the Queen and shake her hand and get your Bible that she signed and all the rest of it. And I went back there and I went, wow. This place really is small.
But isn't that part of the nostalgia too? I remember doing that just recently. I had a couple years back, went to go visit. I grew up in Detroit, which is on the northern part of the United States in Michigan. And we went to my old middle school, and I was like, there's absolutely no way those lockers were that small when I was here.
Absolutely.
Like, they're They're like 3 inches wide. I'm like, what did we put in there? Like a sandwich? But just you look in, it's just rows and rows. I'm like, but when I was a middle schooler, I was like, these were the giant lockers. I put all my books in it and everything. And just that sense of nostalgia just hit me. But it hit me with that weird perspective of like, I'm bigger and older than my memories.
Absolutely.
My memories made everything seem different compared to where they are now.
Yeah. And you don't really appreciate what you're seeing when you see it. Like I said, I'd met the Queen. I've been on a shoot where Prince Charles has been there, when his sons were really young, like William and Harry, when they were. I mean, I think William is the same age as me or close to it. So I was around when he was a young lad. I'd sadly never met Diana before she met her untimely demise. But what like we're saying about kids nowadays is, after we moved from there, we moved to a different place, and the nearest neighbour was half a mile away, and the house was surrounded by grass and then surrounded by fields. And you're right, all he did was run around. The local farmer said, I don't care what you do, you can go in the fields, just don't destroy my crops. And that's exactly what it was. And it was more fun being outside than it was being inside. But sadly, kids nowadays, all they grow up with is computers, and as much as they're good things, they're also bad things.
Right. Well, they grow up with their parents listening to true crime podcasts, and then they're too scared to let their kids go outside.
I haven't got time to see them. I've got podcasts to listen to. Go and play on your computer.
Now, on the flip side, and I think we've all dealt with this, at least I know I have with our kids. I've got 4 daughters. They are very much computer gamers, tablet gamers, but we did make them go outside. We did expose them to camping and doing weekends and going on the lake and stuff. And they looked back at their high school years and they were like, we don't want to camp anymore. And then now that they're out of college and they've got their own jobs and they're working 9 to 5 and they don't get all summer off, all of a sudden they're like, can we do a beach vacation as a family again? Can we go camping? Like, wait a minute. You were the ones who were resisting. But so there's hope, Ian, that if you do enough with your kids, maybe 1 or 2 of those things stick.
Yeah. I mean, my eldest is coming a little bit more around to it. She'll now come down and spend time with us if we're watching telly or if we go for a walk. She'll come with us and do that. Where most of my young ones is like, no, I'm staying in my bedroom. Do you want to come for a walk? No.
And Walt, I know you can identify. You've got 3 girls.
Yeah, so I can definitely identify. Well, and this weekend I was painting, and so it was like, I mean, it was like living in an alternative universe, because my kids never want to do anything, and then I start painting, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we want to help." And I'm like, "Okay, here's a roller. Here's how it works. Here's tape. Here's how it works." Yeah,
the ironic part, the one thing that has to be done well, they want to help with, and they don't know what they're doing. But like the things that they know how to do, like put dishes away, make your bed. I don't want to do that.
Oh no, the sink's still full of dishes, but at least the room's painted. I can, it's kind of this weird balance of things that I'm willing to give up one for the other.
I was like that when I was a kid, though. I wanted to learn how to cut the grass because I thought it was so cool because we had a riding lawnmower. Like, I'm on a lawnmower. And my mom's like, yeah, but you can't make your bed. You can't put your toys away. You can't. I'm like, yeah, but the lawnmower.
I know. Well, I'm still that way. I'm 53 and I'm like, yep, got to go cut grass.
Well, see, you have a riding mower. I have a push mower now because my wife's a personal trainer and she's like, we need the exercise at our age. And I'm like, God bless America.
I know. I gave up on that a while back. So like, nope, riding mower and a beer.
Ian, you might as well jump in at some point because otherwise it's just going to be me and Walt now.
No, you carry on.
Well, Ian, one question I have had for a long time, and I've read a couple of books that have mentioned this, but the difference between the U.S. and Great Britain is obviously, we share a similar language, but we're 2 very different cultures. And so when you're listening to podcasts and picking podcasts to listen to, what do you find is the difference between the podcasts that are coming out from the U.S. and the podcasts that are coming out from the U.K.?
That's quite a hard one to explain, really. One thing I will say is Americans tend to talk a lot more. I don't mean that in a horrible way. The Americans tend to explain things and probably explain things a lot better than what people in the UK do. You have a better vocabulary of words, I would say. We might sound all very posh, or some of us do, but we're not. But to be fair, most podcasts are generally the same. But you do, like I've heard this morning, I had a crime on one of the true crime podcasts I listened to, and I heard the same crime from 3 different podcasts, and they're all the same thing, but they're all told very differently. Oh. Everyone sets up very differently. A lot of them start at different points. I mean, this one was about a family who, it was a very long time ago, their house was firebombed. They had 8 children. 4 of them, thought to have been killed in the fire, just disappeared. There was no bones in the house, no anything. So the house burnt down. They expected to find the bodies, found nothing. And it was all about finding, it's just generally, these 4 children never turned up. Wow. And this is a long time ago now. The parents have all died. It's only I think it's the 3 remaining children. Only 2 of them now are still alive, and they're well into their 80s and 90s now. And even that story told 3 different ways. It sounds like a different story, although it's exactly the same.
Wow. Now, I'm going to jump on a difference from what Walt did, because I mean, there are obviously differences in terms of culture and background and history and even dialects. But one thing I'm always blown away by, because I do follow some podcasts and have become now a team member of one of them, how similar stories are, even though they're happening 500, 700, 800 miles apart from each other. The same kind of movies we'd watch, or the same kind of sleepovers, or the same kind of issues we're dealing with like just talking about raising kids. And it makes me feel like we are one world. And if we would remember that maybe a little more often, maybe we could get around bickering so much.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's not difficult to be nice to people, because we are all the same. We are all living the same life. We are generally doing the same things, maybe in different orders and in different places and in different settings, but we are all doing the same life and leading the same lives. And it frustrates me to see the way people behave. And that's why I try and be more positive and try and be nice to people. I sent a message to one of my podcasts I listened to. He struggles, or had, because there was a little delay on his podcast, and he came back on to say, I've been struggling in these last few weeks and all the rest of it. So I sent him an email, and all it said was, to anybody who wants to hear this, don't forget that I love you, I respect you, and you are wonderful no matter what anybody tells you. And if anybody needs to hear it, there you go. Mm-hmm. And I felt like somebody, he needed to hear it, and he messaged me back to say, I really needed that. Thank you very much. And even the co-host sent me a message to say, I didn't know I was going to hear that, and I was really glad I did. It's not difficult to be nice to people, is it? It really isn't.
No, it's not.
No, and unfortunately, I think, and Walt, you and I, we deal with this being kind of in media and tangential with media, because I'm in radio and you fill in for me from time to time, and you're a fan of radio. I hate it, but the phrase, if it bleeds, it leads, not only has it been the news mantra, now social media says, okay, if you can be a mean bastard, maybe you'll get more clicks and likes and retweets than if you're just kind to somebody. And I think people feel empowered behind a hashtag and in their mom's basement on a keyboard, thinking like somehow there's some righteous keyboard warrior, and we've lost the civility that we used to have when we saw each other face to face.
Yeah, and I heard somebody say one time, I think it was when I was in journalism school, that they said, in order to do this job, you have to have thin skin and a soft heart, thick skin and a soft heart.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And at first, I didn't really understand that, but as I've gotten older, and particularly the way that the internet has grown, the people with the worst attitudes, the people with the most hateful things to say, seem to be the ones that get the loudest megaphone. And I know when I've had, particularly as I went through the time with my mom being sick and then passing away, there were some great people who reached out to me and just said, hey, I'm thinking about you, praying for you. Sorry, this is going on. And that, people I didn't even know. And that meant so much to me to get those notes. And, and we've been really fortunate too. We've had very few people that I can think of who sent us anything that was negative or I'm going to kill you too, or, whatever. We fortunately have not had too much of that.
No, my wife says that a lot, but that's different.
Oh, yeah. That is understandable.
That's internal. And yes, and understandable. Because if you know me.
And very meaningful.
I could end up being the subject of a true crime podcast pretty soon.
Yes, you could. I've already started the script on it. So.
But no, you're right. You're right, Walt.
We've had a lot more nice things than we have otherwise.
I think we're circling back around a podcast, which is great. There is a niche for everything, but at the same time, you got to be careful to make sure that you're putting out a quality product at some level, because so many people can cover the same subject. And I think, Walt, you and we love doing things that make people laugh. If we can take somebody's head out of their doldrums or whatever for an hour or two, I mean, that's payment right there, to just give the distraction. And I like that, because you know what my job is. I could talk politics all day long. Even I need a break from that. you know?
Yeah.
I gotta go, like, time to laugh.
Well, it's like you said earlier, Alan, that everybody has a story, and everybody's life has fascinating aspects to it that are transferable to all the rest of our lives. And when we can find that with somebody and let them tell that story, to me, that is, I mean, there have been so many times I've sat here with my jaw on the floor as somebody has talked about something that they've done. And it isn't always the astronaut, even though his story was amazing. And, but some of it is just the people that we've had, like my friend Hawk, who lost his dad and his wife within a week of each other, and had just retired from the police force, got on his motorcycle and drove all over North America. And hearing those stories and hearing how people deal with what life brings, sometimes to me is even more fascinating than some of those amazing stories that people have to tell.
Yeah, I'm gonna label Ian as having a wonderful rack. He's a random act of kindness person. And I think we need more people with good racks out there. Random acts of kindness. We need that more.
No doubt about that.
I know. And here's the thing, Ian, you have inspired me, because I have made a point of, I don't do it every week, but I try to do a follow Friday, or try to make sure you check these podcasts out on Twitter. I try to do that. But at the same time, I try to, every time I'm listening to a show, I take a second and I hit that share button, even while I'm listening. I'm already listening. What's the point of just hitting share forward? Boom, listening to the show. Can't wait. It doesn't take any time at all. And so you've actually inspired me to do that every time I listen to a show. So you are having an influence.
Well, I'm genuinely honored. Like you say, it doesn't take much. I always try and tag the show. I tag the people who are on it. So if they have a guest on, I try and find them on Twitter so I can tag them in as well. And I also, if I can, I'll often put in something that I've heard during the show, so they know I have definitely listened and not just gone, yeah, great show, great show, great show, great show, and I haven't listened to any of it.
Here's the thing, though. You could do that, and I'd still be okay. Hey, he said he liked the show. But no, I think we all appreciate how genuine. I said that at the very beginning. You're so genuine. It's not about you. It's about the show. And that's awesome.
Well, I genuinely appreciate them. So or you, and I genuinely appreciate them, all the work that goes into it. So it's nice to give something back. It's always nice to give back, isn't it?
Yeah. Here's the other thing. We're heading into the holidays, and because we shared that Western culture among our countries, the holidays are always they're always supposed to be anyway, a time of joy and giving and remembering to do unto others and to help your fellow man. And somebody may not be doing as well this season. Are you checking in on them? Doesn't take a whole lot to just be neighborly.
No, absolutely not.
Walt,
couldn't agree more. Yeah, Walt.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm dealing with my daughter who missed the bus and got locked out of the house.
Noticed you're a little distracted.
Just to show you that podcasters are real people.
We are real people.
You really are.
All right, Ian, before we start to wind down the interview piece, one of the things I also wanted to know is, where do you see kind of yourself in terms of the podcast world even just, 4 or 5 years from now, you've been listening to podcasts pretty steadily to the point where it's become your daily, way of distracting yourself while doing your job. Where do you see yourself in the next few years?
Probably not too far different to where I am now. Unless my job changes, where then I don't get so much time, I will probably be doing the same thing. I enjoy it. I never get tired of listening to the podcast. Because I keep everything so varied, I don't listen to a whole day of true crime and a whole day of sport and another day of stories. I mix them up. I'll have a true crime, then I'll move on to a sport one, then I'll move on to a story one, then an entertainment one. Because like Walt said, some of the true crime ones can be quite heavy. And so I keep it round, keep it mixed up, and I enjoy it. And as long as I'm still driving and doing what I'm doing, and my body doesn't give up on me, then I will be, as long as I have the time, I'll be listening.
In some ways, you've programmed your own very custom radio station with the content only you wanted for you. It's like it's your own private radio station.
That's exactly it.
That's kind of cool, Walt. I mean, we kind of do the same thing too.
Yeah, well, and we could spend the next hour talking about where entertainment and podcasts are going, but I think the fact that it gets the content you want delivered directly to you when you want it, often for free, is pretty awesome.
Now, one thing I'm going to add, and Ian, this because when you have reached out to shows and you've seen shows reach out to you, if a show that you go listen to because you stumble across a podcast that came out 3 years ago, it's still okay to reach out. We love hearing from people who are just now stumbling across our first season or just now commenting on a guest we had 2 years ago. It may be older content, but it never gets old engaging with the listener. And that's something I think we get to do that is kind of special because of the internet, because of the medium. You can engage directly with the listener, which I think is pretty neat.
Absolutely. And the good thing with the podcast platform is it saves all the previous shows. Like you said, I found one the other day. It was a woman. She's reenacting old stage shows that used to be the radio shows that they used to do before television. But she's reenacting them in her own way, like with more modern talk and wondering why there's no internet in the 1940s and all the rest of it. And it's really funny. And so I went back and listened to, I think she only heard about 14 or 15 shows, but I went back and listened to them and I got in contact to say, I've just listened to your whole back catalogue and I'm loving what you're doing. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work. And she obviously sent back to say, oh, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much for reaching out. And it was brilliant. And it's great that I could go back and listen to everything. I haven't just got to join it halfway through, which is great. The podcast is such a big world and it's blowing up. It's getting bigger and bigger with every week. And there's so many shows coming around now. And you don't have to listen to all the big production ones that have got a team of people behind them and all they do is turn up and talk and then somebody else edits it for them. The indie podcasts are brilliant and there's so much work goes into them. It's great and more people need to know about it.
Well, we are so happy that you were able to take time to join us because honestly, for all the bad we've talked about with social media and how the worst people get the loudest megaphone sometimes, I have had the coolest time meeting people and becoming friends and virtual, relations with people where we're sharing daily thoughts and messages and how's it going and what are you doing and good to hear from you. And for that, I guess we take the good with the bad when it comes with social media. And I'm really pleased that we have made your acquaintance.
Likewise. I spent my youth being very, very shy and all these things is very, I mean, we wouldn't believe how nervous I am being a 44-year-old man being on a podcast. But I haven't felt these kind of nerves since I was at school trying to ask a girl out. But it's brilliant. You've made me feel so comfortable. I'm so grateful to have been on.
Well, we strive for that. And I think Walt and I both just we love learning about the person we've got on the show. And we're glad you were able to join us. All right. Well, let's do this before, and we'll ask you again at the end, but just in case a lot of times people stop a podcast halfway through and they come back on the back half of work. If somebody does want to, follow your Twitter feed, they want to be able to see the shows that you're supporting and just learn a little bit more about, your thoughts on what's going on with what you're listening to. How do people find more about you, Ian?
The only place you can find me is Twitter. My Twitter handle is an old one, but it's bitdead77, BITDEAD 77. If you come on there, you'll see. If you follow me, I'll follow you back anyway. But if you literally just look through the feed, and there is just nothing but podcast after podcast after podcast, the ones I'm listening to at the time, and obviously every Friday you get to see a whole host of podcasts. You may have to go through them to find the ones you like, but that's where it is.
Folks, I'm telling you, follow BitDead on Twitter. It's so positive, it's so engaging, and it even sometimes I see messages going to other shows that have nothing to do with me or our show, and I just start to smile because he's just brightened someone's day, and that, by way of extension, has brightened my day. So you can't go wrong following Ian on Twitter. With that said, Walt, why don't we go ahead and move into our next segment? You dodged the bullet last week where we got to talk about cool things like what movies we watch for Halloween, but you got forced to watch a movie that may have been a horror show in and of itself without necessarily meaning to be a Halloween movie.
God, what is this? Stop it! I don't get me out of this house!
Let's talk about the movie that was voted for you to watch.
Well, the vote actually 2 weeks ago, but lands in my lap this week was Mega Shark versus Crocosaurus.
Yeah. Let's just put this in the category of a show we like to call, oh my God.
Yeah.
How the heck did you get stuck with that?
I don't know. Maybe something I did in a past life or someone I've wronged in this one.
Have you heard some of your stories from this life?
Yeah, unfortunately I have, and I think it's all caught up with me. This movie scores a 2.4 on IMDb.
I think you have to try to be that bad. Like, it doesn't just happen. I have to will that to be that bad.
It really earned every bit of it. It earned every bit of the 2.4. I haven't looked, but I'm guessing that the entire budget for this thing was, somewhere around $14. The tagline for this is "Whoever wins, we lose." Well, that can be translated right over to the audience. That whoever watches this, you lose. The odd thing about this is it actually has some good actors in it who did a fairly good job. Does the name Robert Picardo sound familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. When you said Picardo, I thought, is that the Spanish version of the guy who played the captain of the Enterprise? But
okay, well, you're in the right universe. Robert Picardo played the hologram doctor in Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, really?
Yes. And, of course, he's been in a couple of the other Star Trek iterations. Yeah, so he plays a submarine commander in this one. And he's I want to say the bright spot. He's not really a bright spot because there aren't any. He's the best thing this movie has to offer. Sarah Living plays a Secret Service agent, which I'm not really sure why a Secret Service agent would be hunting monsters. But she actually does a fairly good job of taking the role seriously. But this movie is a disaster. I mean, it's a disaster film, but it's a disaster. The description on IMDb is: a megalodon battles with a crocosaurus, causing massive destruction. The U.S. Army has to try to destroy the havoc-creating monsters. That is not true. It is not the U.S. Army. It is the U.S. Navy. For some reason, there is a soldier in it, but I'm not sure why. Because he doesn't really do anything that's Army-like. There are scenes with submarines in it, and Robert Picardo plays the captain of a submarine. This is just so bad. There's a fisherman who's using a fishing rod, and it has actual string on it, like string, like that you'd fly a kite with. That would never work in a fishing pole. He, of course, gets eaten by the Crocosaurus, and it is the worst overacting I've ever seen. Here is the line that I think best sums this movie up. One of the guys in one of the submarines says, "They have to stop shooting the shark. It has a nuclear submarine inside it." So that's the kind of writing and that just shows you what greatness there is in this movie.
Wow.
I should have come up with some kind of rate, like watchability thing on this, but 2.4 out of 10 basically sums it up. I mean,
what you need to do is come up with the gummy scale, the THC gummy scale, that the worse the movie, the more gummies you need to tolerate it. Like this is a 9.
Oh no, this would have been like a 14 out of 10. On the gummy scale, this is like all the gummies you got.
You just upend the bag and you go buy more.
This is gonna take the whole stash because this movie blows.
Wow. And I think we can end on that note.
Yeah. That pretty much, I don't watch this movie.
Don't watch the movie.
There's probably other Crocosaurus iterations or Mega Shark iterations that would be much better. Let me just tell you, nobody wins in this one.
Nobody wins. The losers are the ones who decide to sit down and watch.
Exactly. That is exactly right.
All right. Well, we one of the things we love doing as well is we love combing said internet that we were talking about and complaining about a little bit earlier to find news items that go dramatically underreported, but we know they happen and we know they're real because we found them on the internet. It's a segment we like to call
It's No Bullshit.
Walt.
Dramatically underreported is that nails it, doesn't it?
Well, I'm doing my part to introduce the segment. So what do you got? What's your first news story?
Well, Vice.com has a great article out here for us. Missing drunk man spent hours helping a search party look for himself.
Do you mind telling me what this is all about, mister?
A missing man in Turkey.
I saw this headline.
This is a great story. A missing man in Turkey.
You guys are searching for somebody? Okay, I'll help.
I'm in. A missing man in Turkey accidentally joined his own search party and looked for himself for hours before he realized he was the target of the rescue mission.
Congratulations on your discovery.
According to local media reports, Bahan Matula, a 50-year-old man from a rural region in Turkey, was out drinking with his friends when he wandered off into a nearby forest and didn't return. Worried about him, his friends alerted authorities who set up a search and rescue mission to find him. According to Turkish channel NTV, when news of the missing man got out, efforts to find him intensified in nearby neighborhoods with a large group of volunteers joining the mission. The search party was called out and called out his name for hours when suddenly a man from within the group spoke up and said, "Who are we looking for? I'm right here."
Hello there.
It is unclear how he found himself in his own search party or how his friends didn't realize that he was right under their nose the whole time.
You guys suck.
Police were able to safely escort him to his home. This isn't the first time a missing person joined his own rescue mission. In 2012, an Asian tourist who went missing in Iceland was also found in her own search party after she reportedly failed to recognize her own description.
It's no bullshit.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, I mean,
brilliant.
That's insane.
That would be that'd be something I could see you do though, Walt. It's like, oh yeah, I heard there's this guy. He went out in the woods, jumped off a trampoline. We lost track of him. I'll help.
Yeah, there may have been times when I had enough cranial damage to end up in my own search party. That's true.
It sounds like what I was doing earlier. I was jumping on my trampoline and landing in the woods, but oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, crashed my helicopter, spent 3 hours looking for myself.
All right. Well, since we're on interesting stories of people, how about this one? A New York man decides he's figured out the best way to escape from the police: climb a tree.
What in the wide world of sports is going on here?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that worked.
Rudy Thomas, age 44, decided to climb up a tree in his yard back in early October to avoid police who had come to arrest him. By the time that he came down, he had spent 3 days up in the branches. Here's the story.
Oh, boy.
It all begins on a Wednesday, 2 p.m., when Thomas's mother called the police to his home. According to CBS New York, Thomas was threatening her with violence on top of having an outstanding warrant for punching his girlfriend. Real piece of work. When the cops arrived at the house, Thomas wasn't going to surrender without a fight, but rather than take it to the officers, he decided to climb up on the roof of his house. When the officers got ladders, he decided, well, I'll just jump into the branches of the tree by my roof line, and he climbed up higher into the tree, daring the cops to take him down.
Well, there's something you don't see every day.
He started yelling at people, saying that the cops were here to kill him and blah, 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 and the cops realized it's turning into a PR nightmare, so they did everything they could to try to talk him down, including bringing out professional hostage negotiators, all of them failing to get him out of the tree. So they said, well, maybe we can annoy him out of the tree. They got some drone operators that would buzz by him to try to get him down. They started blaring their sirens. It didn't matter. He ended up sleeping in the tree for a couple of days. The cops finally decided, okay, this guy is obviously not quite right. They put some air mattresses down and then all quietly walked away from the tree, which made this guy convinced that they had left.
It's a trap.
So he gets down out of the tree thinking he's won, only to find out that they had gotten in touch with one of the priests of the church he goes to tell him, look, they're not here to hurt you. They're here to help you. And he said, well, if they bring an orange van and pick me up, then I'll be happy to go with them. At this point in time, as of the story, police had decided they weren't going to do anything at this point, but who knows? Maybe they will show up with an orange van.
It's no bullshit.
He avoided being arrested by climbing into a tree and staying up there for 3 days.
Wow.
I could also add only in New York, but because down here, people are like, hey, anybody got chainsaw?
Oh, yeah. That would be taken care of here.
You're like, hey, you might want to come down. This tree's coming down with whether you're in it or not.
Well, release the hounds is often what happens in Georgia. Oh, man. I'll have to ask my dad about that. I know what his strategy would be for getting him down.
Well, I was thinking, because, we're all fans of Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry. Wouldn't he have just kept shooting like inches from his head and blowing bark chips in his eye, and eventually he would just freak him out and make him come down?
I don't know if the term inches from would have come into play here. Yeah. You're coming out of that tree one way or another, young man.
Man's got to know his limitations.
Yes, he does. All right. Well, WSBT.com in Michigan reports this story, which comes from WBMA in Alabama. So we got an Alabama man here. Alabama man found sleeping in athletic complex press box in a pile of chicken fingers and meth.
I am a golden god.
Wait, a pile
you heard it.
Chicken fingers and meth.
And meth.
Folks, we say this often, don't do meth.
Police in Alabama say a man was discovered last week sleeping in an athletic complex press box in a pile of chicken fingers and meth. The Pleasant Grove Department of Public Safety says the 37-year-old Matthew Williamson was charged September 17th with unlawful breaking and entering a vehicle and theft of property. He was transported to the Jefferson County Jail. All sounds well. According to the news release, less than 2 hours after Williamson made bond, he stole a car in Hueytown and hid it in Pleasant Grove. On September 22nd, there was a report of an unknown person breaking into the concession stand at the Pleasant Grove Athletic Complex. Police say Williamson was found sleeping the next morning in the press box among a pile of chicken fingers, chips, candy, and meth. Williamson admitted to the crimes and was transported to the Jefferson County Jail in Bessemer. He's being held on a $32,000 bond.
It's no bullshit.
So if you want somebody who you can really party with, head over to Bessemer with $32,000 and check this guy out.
chicken wings and meth. But in
Chicken
a pile.
wings, chips, meth. That dude knows how to rock.
He's got, the KFC in his neighborhood stays well in business.
Goodness, if he's got any money.
Well, I've got one that's both good and bad to wrap this up. We all know cancel culture is a real thing. There are groups out there who feel like it's their job that if they themselves are offended and nobody else is, it doesn't matter. We're going after your job. Well, thankfully, in this case, students ran to the aid of their principal that a couple of parents wanted fired.
Oh.
Why, do you ask? Well, let's go to the Wayback Machine. Remember back in the 80s when it was really big to pick on heavy metal bands as being the root of all evil for all things bad? Or maybe it's Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe it was video games, or the Three Stooges, whatever. There were always parents out there trying to figure out where they can blame kids' bad behaviors on anybody other than bad parenting. So let's move forward now to Canada. A group of overly concerned parents have launched a petition to get a principal of Eden High School in St. Catharines, Ontario, fired. Why? Because she posted a couple of pictures on Instagram wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, doing the devil horn rock thing, and going to see an Iron Maiden concert.
Just what do you think you're doing?
They want to fire the principal.
Okay.
Because she likes Iron Maiden. Clearly, liking a band to buy their merchandise and participate in their fan culture is now grounds for termination, according to some parents. Well, the story has a part 2. The students strike back. Burns can probably keep her job. That's because the school's students, the kids of these parents, actually support their principal. In fact, they stand so much behind her that they launched their own counter petition titled, "We Need Mrs. Burns." Quote, "It is ridiculous that a couple of parents only judge her role as a principal based on an Instagram post about liking the band Iron Maiden." The students go on to point out that Eden High School is a public school, not a Christian school, and they say that if some parents don't like the principal, they're free to send their kids to some other school. Burns has made Eden a safe space for so many people. She spreads nothing but love and kindness and is probably one of the best and most enthusiastic principals the school has ever had. Let me just tell you, side note, any principal who's doing the devil horns rock thing for Iron Maiden is a cool principal, and you want them in charge of your school.
No doubt.
The students seem to have won the battle. Check this out. The parents' first petition to remove the teacher was pulled from the online petition place, having only garnered 553 signatures. That's actually sad. That means outside of the 2 parents who brought this suit, there was 551 other morons out there. The students' counter petition, however, has 22,000 signatures and climbing.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
So there you are. Score 1 for Iron Maiden. Stupid parents with no sense of anything, 0.
Okay, is this a good place for my Iron Maiden story?
You can, because I've got a Iron Maiden story coming up in my music or what I'm listening to section.
Okay, so my buddy Bill, who is a minister, a Presbyterian minister, goes to interview at a church to be the assistant pastor. And he and his wife go to the Sunday morning worship service, and the worship band is warming up. And Bill looks at his wife and says, "Hey, Margaret, isn't that the drummer from Iron Maiden?" And she looks him up online, and they're looking at the picture. They're looking at the drummer. And sure enough,
Nico?
The drummer, yes, is the drummer in the worship band at the church that Bill is trying to get a job at.
That is awesome.
So he comes off when he's not on tour, he plays in the worship band at the church.
Okay, we got to get in touch with Nico McBain. We got to get him on. I know you said
I'm working on that. Yep.
We have to, because when we get to what we're listening to, if you don't have Iron Maiden's latest album, there's something wrong with you.
I have heard it's awesome.
Yeah. I'm using the time now as we're getting ready to move into entertainment. I will tell you, I'm going to talk about that album here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and dive into our last section, since we're talking all things entertainment, what we're watching, what we're listening to, and what we're reading. Let's go on with entertainment. Walt, let's start with you. We'll do with what we're watching, and we've still got Ian hanging along with us. So let's start with just what are we watching? Walt, I'll go to you first. What do you want to recommend to the audience that you've seen this last week?
So there's this crazy documentary on Hulu called the Amazing Johnathon documentary. And the Amazing Johnathon was this this kind of oddball magician, entertainer, comedian kind of guy back in the 80s. And he got cancer and they told him he was going to die. And he's still around today. But he's kind of trying to make a comeback. They did this documentary. And what they didn't tell the documentarian is they'd also agreed to let 2 other groups do documentaries of him at the same time. So all these documentary teams start stepping all over each other, and it becomes this Three Stooges-esque crazy documentary. So check that out. The
documentary is about 3 different documentary filmmakers all trying to make the same documentary.
And they're all like trying to not get the other documentary teams in the shots. And I mean, it's nuts. And the Amazing Johnathon is crazy, and it is really bizarre. So check that out. There are also 3 movies on Netflix this month that I want to recommend if you've never seen them. Tommy Boy is on Netflix. If you want just an hour and a half of just brainless hilarity,
they just got done listening to this.
Right. Well, if you want 2 more hours of brainless hilarity, it still is one of my favorite. It is my favorite Chris Farley movie. Also, I saw that Jaws is on this month, so you definitely want to check that out. One of those movies, I've said it before, if I turn it on with 15 minutes left or right at the beginning, I'm going to sit and watch it, and everything else has to stop. Just great movie. And I also saw that Talladega Nights is on. Not a movie for kids. Great movie. Absolutely hilarious. It is so funny. And there's so many just one-liner, great quotable lines in that movie. And then if you're not watching or haven't watched Ted Lasso on Apple TV, it is so good. And it is a great comedy, but it's got a lot of heart to it. I know other people have recommended it on our show. Absolutely check out Ted Lasso. It's about an American football coach who takes a job as a soccer coach in England, and it is absolutely fantastic.
You know what's crazy about that show? It was built on the spoof commercial that turned into a spoof little internet thing.
Yeah.
Making fun about, well, what would an American football coach do? Thinking, well, they have football in the UK. I'll go over there, and like, that's weird. They don't use their hands. What's going on? And it was so funny to watch. And then to make a whole series out of it is just incredible.
It really is. And it is such a great series. I mean, it's absolutely awesome. So definitely check that out.
Ian, you were nodding. I don't know if do you have Apple TV? Have you heard of Ted Lasso over there?
I've heard of it. I don't have Apple TV, so I've not seen it, but we've, they did a few interviews with some of the cast. I think there's a blonde lady. I think she's the chairman of the football club.
And she was on Game of Thrones.
She's very tall, isn't she? I saw a few interviews with them talking about the team. It looks very funny. I don't have Apple TV, so I haven't been able to see it, sadly. But
I gotta tell you, about 18 months ago, we did, or maybe longer than that now, maybe 2 years, we cut the cord, got rid of all the cable channels, decided we're just doing internet and streaming. And now I think I'm going to start spending as much because my wife and I are like, I guess we got to get Apple TV now.
That's how I am too.
At the very least, we think we'll get it for a couple of months and try to get caught up on all the shows like Ted Lasso season 1 and 2, and maybe what was the morning show? Is that the one with Jennifer?
Morning show, yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, and that's what I did. I got it for like 2 months, and then I'll, as soon as I get done with these, I'll end it for a while.
That is the one thing good about the streaming age. Like, we signed on to a sports package to get Georgia Bulldogs football so we could watch college football. And as soon as football is over, we're going to get rid of it because that's like $60 a month to be for the privilege of sports. The Apple TV is $5 a month, but sports is $60 a month.
Yeah, right.
So,
yes.
All right. What else? Anything else you watching?
That's probably enough for now. I mean, I've got several things I'm cooking on, but I'll talk about those next week.
You're giving me extra time because I went on one of those binges where I just was like, okay, watch. I hadn't watched because we've been gone camping. We'd gone to Cumberland Island a few weeks back and then 10 days around the lake. We really didn't do a whole lot. So Black Widow, the MCU movie that was supposed to come out, pandemic hits, they pushed it back, decided to release it in theaters and Disney Plus if you buy the special ticket. I didn't want to buy the special ticket, so it just came out a couple weeks ago as a regular Disney Plus subscriber. So excited to watch it. I will tell you, it is probably the second worst of the MCU movies for me. I rank it just above Captain Marvel. It just felt like a TV movie with a Disney budget. It was an interesting idea, but it was poorly executed. It was like, okay, we need a chase scene here. Oh, we need a fight scene here. Oh, we should do something here. None of it felt motivated. I enjoyed it in the sense none of the Marvel movies are bad, but I don't see myself going back to this one anytime soon. So there's my thought. What if on the small screen, the animated set sort of Marvel universe they go back and they tell the stories of, well, what if Steve Rogers didn't actually get the super serum, but actually Peggy Carter did. And she became, instead of Captain America, she became Captain Carter and had a British flag on her shield instead of the stars and stripes. I really enjoyed some of the episodes. And then as it got further along, some of them were a little kookier, almost for kids. But by the time it got to the final episode, it did the thing that Marvel is so good at. It brought in threads from all of the previous episodes that you would have had to have watched to understand how it resolves. And so even though it was animated and some of the shows weren't as good, I still enjoyed it. So give What If a try. If you've got HBOMax, just recently they have all of the Harry Potter movies all brought under the Harry Potter collection. And anybody who knows me and my wife, my kids, they grew up watching and reading the books. And so as parents, we grew up and watched with them, and we're all Harry Potter fans. So we always do this. We do these marathons. And so we just finished Harry Potter 5. So we've gone 1 through 5. We got a couple more to go. Cry Macho. That's on HBOMax. The Clint Eastwood flick.
Yes,
didn't have to pay extra for it. It's available. So you could have gone to the theater or watch it at home. It was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. And it is Clint Eastwood at 90, still throwing punches and still winning the ladies. Gotta love him. Come on.
And the crazy thing is, I'm convinced that Clint Eastwood could kick my butt right now. Even at 90, I think he could take me.
It's a weird story because there's a lot of things you start asking yourself, would that happen that way? But there's also a tenderness and sort of a life lesson about family and what it means to be good to one another and being a responsible dad and things like that. And so it was an enjoyable watch. 2 documentaries, actually the same documentary, but 2 seasons. The Movies That Made Us. I had forgotten season 2 had come out a little while ago, and they just dropped season 3. So I binged all of season 2 in one sitting, which included Back to the Future, Pretty Woman, Jurassic Park, and Forrest Gump. Tells you all about the craziness that went into trying to make those movies happen. If you've never seen the Netflix series, The Movies That Made Us, they're all awesome. Season 3, perfectly timed for Halloween, because check out the first episodes. All 8 I've already watched, but it was Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, RoboCop, Aliens, then Coming to America, Nightmare Before Christmas, and wrapped up with Elf. From Halloween to Christmas, there you go. Go watch
That's
all
awesome.
of those. If you're a fan of any of them, you don't have to watch them in order. It's just amazing how almost every one of these movies probably wasn't going to get made or was going to fall apart. And it's just amazing the circumstances and how one person did one thing and figured out a way to make it happen and brought it all together.
And it's an interesting series because even movies that I don't like that they profile, I found really interesting, like Dirty Dancing. If you had asked me before, I'd have said, I don't care. But I kind of somehow just like it started playing and I wasn't paying attention. And all of a sudden I was all in.
If you are even a somewhat movie fan and you want to know some of the behind the scenes, how the heck did this make it, get made and become so popular? It really is The Movies That Made Us. And everybody knows really the names of these movies and these titles, but some people don't know the pain that went into making it come to life. So check that out. So there you go. That's what I've been watching. So now we'll go to our guest, Ian. What have you been watching?
Sadly, not a great deal.
Us.
yeah. I only get about an hour a night normally to watch a bit of telly. Normally it just ends up with being evening television. But we have recently, myself and my wife recently finished watching Prodigal Son. Have you seen that?
I want to watch that. That looks like a cool premise.
It's very funny, very funny. It's got some really good bits in it. It drags on a little bit sometimes because it's kind of how far can they take it? But the third season we've just finished watching is they take it a different direction. It worked quite well. It's very, very funny. I can't think what the main actor's name is. Sean. I can't think what his name is. He's an English actor. I can't just. It's gone. We did watch another one with an aeroplane in it, but that's completely gone out of my head as well. I'm really terrible at this podcasting lark. I have recently been.
You're in good company. We're not very good either.
I've been going back through all the Halloween films because I'd never watched them before.
Really?
Never watched them. So I've literally just started watching them. And thankfully, you put in Halloween 1 on YouTube, full film, and they all come up on YouTube. So I've been, because I can't get them without paying for them in the UK at the moment on none of the streaming platforms. I think Netflix has got 1 and 2, but 3 is missing, and then it's got 4 and 5, which is all very odd. Amazon have got it on there, but you have to pay for it if you want to watch it. But YouTube has got them on. So yeah, I'd never seen them before, so I decided to go back and start watching them. I'm halfway through number 2 at the moment. I'm watching them in my lunch hour when I'm at work.
Excellent. Well, the original Halloween followed by Halloween 2 are both fantastic. I think just the way they're made and just the storytelling. And if you get a chance, go check out Netflix, check out how they made the first Halloween now that you've seen it. And I think it'll be pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Yeah. Apart from that, not a lot else.
Okay. Let's move on to if there is anything in this category. This is the one that sometimes gets overlooked because we are very busy, but anything you're reading. Walt, I'll go to you first. Any novels on the Walt's desk that needs to be read?
I'm such an idiot. So I've actually ordered a couple more books, even though I haven't finished the Star Trek book that we've been talking about all year. And I went back, I've been reading a couple of history books that some things have come up that I was talking about. But no, nothing that I really have gone headlong into other than stuff I've already mentioned. So, so I'm going to be the dummy here. I'm not reading anything.
All right. I will dovetail where I was last week. I'm still going through the original Dune by Frank Herbert, getting ready for the movie to come out. Wanted to reacquaint myself with the actual book, not the David Lynch film, not anything that was made for the Sci-Fi Channel. I really wanted to just dive back into the book. It's incredible how some authors can write something that just lasts what seems like forever, that just hit that perfect point. You know, J.R.R. Tolkien did it with The Lord of the Rings. C.S. Lewis did it with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Frank Herbert did it with Dune. Peter Benchley with Jaws. I mean, there's certain books that you just know them. Even if you've never read them, you've heard of them. It's great. I can't believe this guy was thinking of these kinds of concepts in the mid 60s, and we're still talking about it being made into a film now today. So if you've never read Dune, and the original trilogy, I think is Dune, Prophets or Messiah of Dune, and then Children of Dune and Dune Messiah, something like that. You can find the online, just do a quick search. But my wife even said one of the greatest trilogies in sci-fi she read when she was growing up. So it's not just a male thing. It appeals to anybody who just likes a really well-told tale with some depth and complexity and humanity. Even if you're talking about different races and aliens and whatever, it's sort of like, again, Lord of the Rings. You still have the humanity underneath of what it means to actually treat your people well and lead your people, and what happens with warlike races versus non-warlike. It's really amazing. So if you've never read it, check it out. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I didn't like the original movie, so I never read the book. I really need to go back and read that.
I think you'd like it, especially how much is spent on religion and how much religion drives races to do what they think is right. Kind of funny how it kind of circles around to our own society still to this day.
It does.
People doing a lot of crazy things, thinking that, well, but my God said this is what we're supposed to do. Oh, you're supposed to rape, pillage, and destroy. But okay.
Yeah, it's religion is such a fascinating, weird thing sometimes.
Ian, what about you? Are you? I know you're as busy as you are, but you might do as well as podcasts. You might have books on tape or listen to like stories being read to you, audiobooks. What do you got?
Unsurprisingly, yes, Audible is also there. I'm currently going through all the Stephen King books. I'm now on Salem's Lot and working my way through them. So
you're starting at the very beginning. So you started with Carrie.
Yes.
Excellent. You know, I was a massive King fan, and my wife says I should go back and get some of his more recent books. I stopped reading right after Needful Things. Yeah,
Needful Things, yeah.
So I got halfway through Needful Things and was like, this is the dumbest story I've ever read. And I never went back to read anything else. And what I understand is he went through a little lull, but up to that point, everything. I was like, how do you beat your last book? And then he beats his last book. I mean, they're all so. Ian, you've got several novels to go before you even get to Needful Things, and they're all fantastic. So you'll enjoy.
I have read Needful Things. On Audible, sadly, it's Stephen King who narrates it, not an actor.
Not so good. Not so
no,
good.
It isn't.
Yeah, that's rough.
Was it Jeff Leboff, Walt, or was it Dustin Lawler who said, if you get an actor, those books are really good, but if you get the author, like I said, one of them was it the Stephen King reading one of his Gunslinger series or something? He goes, oh, he's terrible.
I think that. Yeah, I can't remember if it was Dustin or Jeff, but
yeah. Sorry, Ian. King might be a good writer, but an actor he's not, and we know Walt, a director he's not.
No. I mean, the Twin Towers is really good. Is it not Twin Towers? What's it called? Dark Tower, not Twin Towers. Dark Tower series. That's, I think, 7 books long. That's really good on Audible if you can listen to it. It's very. The voice actors are brilliant. They really are. They bring so much to a story, which I quite enjoy.
And you have to have that. You have to be able to hear the different tones of the characters to kind of follow in your head, because you don't get to see the he said, she said, and see where you are on the page. And if they're done well, then yes, then they're so much fun to listen to. Anything else besides Stephen King?
There was an Audible original. It's called Sandman. They've just put out the second one. That's done by multiple voice actors. So that's very good. That's pretty much all I've listened to in the last month or so. Again, with podcasts, I don't get a lot of time.
All right. And let's go. And this is going to be a fun one for Ian to try to pare down his list, because now we go to the final category as we wrap up the show. What are we listening to? Walt. We're just going to point everybody to Ian's Twitter in a second. So
yeah, I'm going to definitely have to make this concise to give Ian plenty of time. I think this fits with listening to. I went and saw Dead & Co. this week, which is the surviving members of the Grateful Dead, and with John Mayer as part of the group. So the set list on this concert was amazing. They don't play the same set list everywhere, but some of the songs that I have never heard them play live with as many shows as I've watched online, and the one that I've been to, and it was a fantastic concert. I mean, these guys are up in their 70s, and it was amazing. And John Mayer, who I've never really paid that much attention to, I've been aware of him and heard a couple of his songs, a tremendous guitar player. And it was a great concert. So if you are a Dead fan or just like good music and want some really amazing people watching, check Dead & Co. out when they come through town. They put on a fantastic show. And at their ages, doing 3 hours. There's no opening band. It's just them. They take a break in the middle. And it was a fantastic concert. I could go for an hour about how awesome it was and going through the set list. But the crowd was really into it. And you had everybody there from teenagers up through people who are 80 watching the show. And it was really cool and just a great show. The other one that I want to recommend is a true crime podcast, The Murdoch Murders. And it's a lady named Mandy Matney who's put this together. And like I said earlier, she is a real interesting person. She is a investigative journalist and is really doing a great job. And if you're not familiar with this kind of came to light publicly a couple months ago, when a very prominent South Carolina attorney got shot in the head and didn't die on the roadside in South Carolina. That's when it kind of made
it made national news.
Made national news. But there are all kinds of murders and DUI deaths and all kinds of other crazy things that are now being tied to this family. So it is a fascinating, weird case to follow. And like I said, I kind of some of these things just because it's so much like work, but this one is really fascinating. And Mandy does a tremendous job of covering this story. So if you are a true crime aficionado, definitely check out. And the name of the family is spelled Murdaugh, but it's Murdoch Murders.
Yeah, this is a case of where truth is definitely stranger than fiction.
No doubt. If you had just written this as a script, people would be like, no, that's bullcrap.
Like, there's no way this person and that person orchestrated all this and all these things happened. And you're like, yep.
Yeah. Somebody died in a DUI boat accident in the middle of the night on a boat where the lights were broken. And it all kind of careened out of control from there. And it's almost like every murder in South Carolina is now tied back to this family. It's really just incredible.
All right. Anything else you're listening to?
Yeah, tons of stuff, but I think that's good for now. I'll add some more next week, but I know Ian has a good list for us. So,
all right. Well, let me quickly jump on this. If you don't even have to be a classic 80s Iron Maiden fan. You don't have to be the Iron Maiden fan of their first concept album when they did Seventh Son. You're just a fan of good music. The latest album, Senjutsu, is incredible. I can't believe these guys are in their 60s. They went into the studio, put together an album, and the songs were so long and so many that they wanted to do. They decided to make it a double CD. It's a 90-minute album, 2 CDs. It is great. Start to finish. It's the first Iron Maiden album that I didn't have to kind of grow to like some of the songs. Like there was always 2 or 3 that just like immediately hit you. And then a couple you're like, and then a couple they're like, well, okay. This album, start to finish. Check it out. And somebody on YouTube already has all of the songs out there for as long as they're allowed to be out there. So you can technically listen to it all. I just went ahead and downloaded it on my iPhone. It was the $12.99 to get the whole album. Best $12.99 I've spent in a long, long time. I have just been listening to it pretty much nonstop. It is just that good. Went back one evening, though. I needed something a little more mellow after a late night. I decided to go back to revisit Deep Breakfast by Ray Lynch. If you're into New Age, that came out in the early 80s and still to this day is trippy and fun and quiet. And it's great to listen to, especially if you're alone or if you just want to relax. And because of that, I decided to listen to the Blade Runner score by Vangelis. Check that out if you've never heard the original Blade Runner score. And 2 podcasts I'll just mention right now. 60MW podcast. You can get caught up. They've had a lull for the last couple of days. Dave has been in rehab, recuperation, I should say, for a gallbladder surgery that had a lot of other extraneous stuff going on. And they said it could be up to 3 months in recovery. So he's going to try to get some content going again. But great cultural video game and movie-based podcast. They don't do anything political. And if you're a fan of the movie The Great Escape, they're still plowing through that movie 1 minute at a time. And my minutes have already gone and come and gone, but I'm still going through it as well. The Great Escape Minute is the name of that podcast.
Well, I just pulled up that album, Alan, and nearly every song on here is at least 7 minutes. I mean, that Iron Maiden album. That is amazing to think about because most for air is like 3 minutes.
Let me do this challenge to everybody listening, especially if you've got some, like our parent in that news story about Iron Maiden. You've got some preconceived notion. You have no idea that they write about history. They write about literature. They write about wars. They write about events in fantasy novels or history novels. I mean, they are a very intelligent band just because they like rock or heavy metal, which I don't know if they count as metal anymore, but heavy rock. Go listen to Hell on Earth, the final song on the album. If you listen to that song start to finish with an open mind and you are not compelled by it, don't bother buying the album. But if you are like me, you listen to it that first time, you're going to want to buy the album. It's that good.
Well, the lead singer is like a commercial pilot and a physicist or something
Bruce
crazy.
Dickinson. Yeah. And in 2015 or 2016, right after they had finished one of their previous albums, he then told the band, by the way, I got throat cancer. I don't know if I'm ever going to sing again.
Yeah, right.
But then recovered from it. Some bands, they just kind of like, as they get older. This one is not one of those bands. So check it out. Ian, we're going to wrap with you. What are you listening to?
I will second your Iron Maiden album. That's actually a really, I would almost call it easy listening. It's very easy to listen to and get kind of lost in the music. I found myself a few times listening to it when in the truck while I'm driving back, and then I'm thinking, hang on, I've just driven 10 miles and I don't even realize I've done it, because you got to get, it's very good. It is very good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously I've been listening to podcasts. I've just been trying to write down all the ones I've been listening to, and I can only remember 4 of the 8 that I listened to today. So I'll apologize to them when I speak to them. But 3 of them are true crime ones. One is True Crime Campfire. Katie and Whitney, they are good old American girls. This show's very funny. It's a true crime one again, but it's done with a bit of humor. But not grotesque humor. It's very good. It fits in very well. They always pick stupid crimes.
That helps.
My favorite.
Like one of them was like when geeks attack, and it's just like when geeks do silly things and turn into cult leaders or whatever they're doing. The one that I mentioned earlier, Case File, that's an Australian one. That's very straight down the line. It's tell the story, give you the facts, and walk away. That's if you like good solid content, that's definitely one. Riddle Me That, which is a young lady called Jules. She's American or Canadian, but she lives in Korea or somewhere in Asia. She does it. It's a lot longer than hers is. Each show's around an hour long, but she'll do 8 episodes all talking about the same. And it's normally unsolved crimes and them talking about it. And she'll get therapists on and different people on to try and talk about how somebody might be feeling at a certain time. It's very in depth. The other one I listen to it's called Chad. It's a computer game called Fallout. And it's about these people who have created a audio story podcast about the world in this game, and it's literally just them telling stories about the game, stories they've made up, and they're all voice actors, and it's very funny and it's very good. I can't remember the other ones I've been listening to. I'm quite annoyed with myself. I knew I should have written them down. But yeah, that's some of the ones I've been listening to today.
The only reason why Walt and I are used to doing this is we spend I have a little file on my phone on Notepad. I literally have watching, reading, listening. And every time I go to watch something, I go right to my phone and add it. Otherwise, I would forget. There have been so many times when I wasn't doing that. I'd go to an episode and go, oh my God, I totally forgot that movie. So we're just used to taking notes during the week.
I did think to myself earlier, I really must write stuff down what I've been doing because I'm sure they're going to ask me, and I completely forgot to do it.
Well, the thing, folks, all you have to do is go to his Twitter account because he's going to have all the podcasts and all the Twitter handles for those podcasts. So
absolutely.
Anything else that you're listening to that you want to throw out there? I mean, you gave a plug for the Iron Maiden album, these other these crime podcasts. Anything else album wise or anything that you're listening to that you want to recommend?
No, not really. Literally, podcasts take over my life.
Well, we are just humbled.
Apart from the Wilder Ride, obviously.
Yeah. Well, we are humbled and appreciative that you have added us to that list of folks that you listen to, and we really do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule this evening to be with us. Ian, one more time before we give our close. Somebody who does want to follow you, they forgot to write it down middle of the podcast when you mentioned it. Let's go do it again. How do they find you?
On Twitter, BitDead77. Come and say hi, and you're more than welcome. Anybody and everyone.
It's great. The positivity and the support. It's the reason he's here. Look it. You didn't even know it, but because of all that goodness, you showed up here. And then Walt saying, how is that a good thing? No. Sounds like punishment to me. No, but seriously, that is really, really cool. Walt, very quickly, for all of Ian's friends who have decided to come join us and hear him talk about growing up in England and talking about podcasting, and they're hearing us for the first time, where do they learn more about our show?
Well, you can find more about us in 2 different places. One is on the internet at thewilderride.com. And fortunately for us, when we started up, The Wilder Ride was available everywhere. So if you want to look for us on Instagram or anything else, find us there. Then you can also go over to Facebook, facebook.com/The Wilder Ride, and follow us there. And then a button's going to pop up to let you join our listeners group. So hit that, just answer the quick questions that pop up.
And it's a private
Even if you're
group.
not, it is a private group. Yep.
Which means when you see a message there, it's not in your main feed. It's in the private feed.
That's right.
So that way you don't have to worry about somebody saying, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking geek stuff. It doesn't matter. Only fellow geeks are going to see it.
That's right. And we don't judge. And if we
don't,
do, we delete it. So, yeah. And then all you got to do is just answer those questions. Even if you're not a Gene Wilder fan, just put, I'm not a Gene Wilder fan, but I want to join anyway. And we'll let you in. And it's a great group, just entertainment and
lots
stuff
of
about the show. And yeah, lots of laughs. It's really great. And a great group of people. I try to check in a couple times a day, and it just really is a lot of fun. And if you got any questions about the show, you can ask there. And one of our listeners even asked if it was okay if she started putting a thing up on Fridays that said, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? So that the listeners could be a part of it. And I thought that was an awesome idea. So
absolutely. We want people interacting.
Yes, absolutely. And we certainly don't have a corner on the market of what we're listening to, reading, and watching. So feel free to put that there. And so, yeah, that's the best place, either thewilderride.com or on our Facebook page.
And don't forget to take a second to like and share, much like Ian does. If you have an extra second or two, rate and review. That would be awesome. And no matter what, just reach out. A lot of these podcasters, just a thank you for their work, and that'll make them feel really, really good about all the effort, and doesn't take time at all. Ian, before I say goodbye, I want to say thank you again for taking time with us to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a genuine honor.
It's been so much fun chatting with you, and the 2 hours gone by almost just like that. Folks, if you want to spend time with us again next week, we'll sign up now. Subscribe. We're on every podcatcher out there. We're even on YouTube, and Facebook now has a Facebook podcast channel that they've added. So all of our episodes will now be listenable on Facebook. So it's crazy. Even the everything's evolving to be able to have a link directly. So that way, all these social media, they don't want you leaving their platform to go somewhere else. So they're starting to integrate everywhere. So come on back next week for a brand new edition. And Walt, before you actually, it's Pete Davis, right? Next week?
Pete Davis. Finally, we've gotten hold of Pete. He's been on an extended vacation. If you don't know who Pete Davis is, he is a great sports guy. He's written several books, and he is super entertaining. It is going to be a great episode.
His podcast is called Holy Crap, It's Sports.
Exactly. And it is awesome. It is a great podcast.
So to find out what he has to say about sports in general or life or whatever else.
Yeah, he's going to have some great stuff to say about life and sports.
Come back next week for a brand new episode of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
Ian, thank you so much.
Oh, Ian, did we dodge the bullet, or did the wife pop in behind you? Are you good?
She is home, yes. She's just talking to my daughter upstairs.
Okay, so perfect timing. So we can let you go and you're not going to be in any trouble.
Well, no, she's lovely, bless her.
Awesome. Seriously, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to have you on, and really, really cool to see you face to face. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Hit the dance floor, you gotta be jumping jack.
Jump on in, jump, jump in.
When you hit the dance floor, you gotta be jumping jack.